Pretty fun slate for today in MLB DFS because, at least in my eyes, we have definitive options both with the stud pitchers and with two value guys to use for today. The value guys, pretty shaky, but what do you expect from a value play? The top two studs, definitive aces for MLB DFS. What we're going to do today is take a look at those pitchers, break down the stacks, and let you know what we are thinking for MLB DFS on the slate, and also taking your questions live on air. Welcome on into the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to get you set for today's MLB DFS slate. As always, no matter where you are watching the stream for today, you can get your questions in. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter, you can get those questions in. We'll take them live here on air. We can talk about pitchers. We can talk stacks. We can talk one-offs. We can talk MLB DFS process. Whatever is on your mind, fire away in the chat section over on YouTube or elsewhere. We'll answer your questions here to get you set for Wednesday night in MLB DFS. Another quick reminder first, though, that we are back once again tomorrow with our NFL Draft live stream. That is at 8 p.m. Eastern. All on these same channels, so you can come back here, same time tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll get you set for the first round of the NFL Draft. We are talking betting, DFS, and season-long implications of each pick in the first round, then running it back again on Friday for the second and third rounds. That's myself, JJ Zachariason, Brandon Gadula, and Ryan Williams taking your questions live on air tomorrow. So make sure you tune in 8 p.m. Eastern for that for the first round of the NFL Draft. Manuel is asking, is tonight the night the Yankees finally go over 6 runs? So they didn't go over 6 runs last night, but hey, they got dingers from Judge and Stanton at least. So that did help. You know, it wasn't the best night offensively overall, but the stack still paid off because the individual guys we were largely on wound up doing fine. So that did help. But I think, Manuel, there's a chance they do it tonight. I wouldn't have had the Yankees in my top 3 stacks for today had the weather in Chicago not been as bad as it was, given the low temperature there. I initially had the White Sox number 1 for stacks. I had to lower them to 4 just because the weather was so bad for hitting there. So the White Sox pushed down to 4th. So instead, I did decide to push the Yankees up. Good hitting weather for tonight, 83 degrees in Baltimore. Good park for offense in general. Facing Dean Kramer, he has a higher strikeout rate than you like, higher walk rate than you like. But the thing that makes me still inclined to stack against Kramer is that I'm not sure that strikeout rate will stick. You look at his numbers in the minors, wasn't as big of a strikeout guy as he has shown to be so far this year, projected to be more of a below average strikeout pitcher based on his numbers in AAA, I guess AA back in 2019. He had a 25% strikeout rate there and 11% swinging strike rate. His CSW percentage, if you look at that, is about the league average. So if we're trying to figure out what the strikeout rate for Kramer is going to be, I'm probably looking somewhere around 23 to 24%. If you lower that down, he does project as someone we can stack against. So I like the Yankees today. I will say, though, I like them more yesterday than I do. Yesterday was the day they were facing Zimmerman. I like them more yesterday than I do today. But I still think they're the number 3 stack for this one. Billy, should I go Ohtani or Acuna for today? The answer to those guys is always yes. I will never say no to either. But let's answer this here truthfully. Acuna is facing Kyle Hendricks. Struggling so far this year, Dane Dunning is facing Ohtani. So because Hendricks, if you look at the data here, it's going to say to go with Acuna because Hendricks has struggled so far this year. Dunning has not. I would still probably go with Ohtani just because Hendricks, I still think that the batted ball suppression will wind up being there for him long term. So not super into Acuna personally. I think that Ohtani is the better option. I would say, though, that I'm not necessarily super itchy to go with either guy at the moment. So, you can go there if you want, but neither guy a true priority for me for today. Alvin, do you like the Astros? Let's pull up the Astros here over on the hitting tab. Whoopsie daisies. Go to here. Astros facing Justin Dunn. So Justin Dunn's a guy I've definitely changed my thoughts on a couple of times. I think I'm you look at this, you see green pretty much across the board. I think that they're okay because they're going to get base runners. They are going to get walks against Dunn. That seems to be kind of I don't know if it's a plan of attack for him where he actively tries just to avoid the zone and be okay with walks, but it's worked out. You look at the the ERA for Justin Dunn, you look at the runs scored by the Mariners' opponents in those games overall, even after he leaves, they tend to do a pretty good job of keeping things decently clean. So I don't really seek out stacks against Dunn. Got a 3-point-something ERA, I believe, this year, 3.68. So honestly, like, they're fine, but they're not near the top of my list just because I think Dunn is actually, like, it's his mindset where he's okay walking guys because it means he's not letting up a lot of, super high impact balls in play. Been better with the walks recently. So the Astros not very high on my list personally. They're not going to get a ton of balls in play. They're going to get base runners, but will they be high impact base runners? I don't know. So personally, they're a little bit lower for me. Is Inoue going to get destroyed again against the Cubs today? I actually think Inoue's pretty decent. I know was Arizona he was facing last time. He doesn't go super deep in the games, so he's not someone I consider for DFS, but I think we could look into it to see if we want to use batters against him. My baseline assumption is no, because the strikeout rate for Inoue is very high, 30% so far this year. He gets some ground balls, does let up a lot of hard contact. So it's very possible that Inoue could get rocked because he does let up a lot of hard contact. So it could happen for sure. But I'm not super excited to use the Cubs against him just because get some whiffs, get strikeouts, decent pitcher, and then we're going to see the bullpen come in after 80 or so pitches. So I'm not using him as a pitcher because he doesn't go deep enough in games, but also not really seeking out the Cubs just because the strikeout rate is pretty high for Inoue, and I could see him doing really well. So I would say probably no if we're asking if he'll get rocked for today. Jack, Luis Robert is out with flu-like symptoms. So that's a solid downgrade to the White Sox as a whole. Yeah, I mean, like, they're losing a lot of impact hitters across, like, since the start of the year. Like, they needed better depth coming into the year. So every time they lose a dude, it's a downgrade. It's not as big of a downgrade as it would be for, like, Aaron Judge being out for the Yankees, obviously, but it does still matter. Every time a lineup is missing a good batter, like, I deem Anthony Santander being out for the Orioles as being like a high impact downgrade. So if I deem not having Santander being a downgrade for the entire offense, I should probably do the same for Roberts as well. The reasoning behind that, in case it's not super intuitive, because we do see guys move up in the order when a high impact bat is out. But because baseball is a sport that doesn't have like a clock, it can go as long as possible. So let's say you don't have Cedric Mullins in your stack, but Cedric Mullins gets a base hit. That benefits everyone else because it's not an out. The fewer outs the hitters make, the more volume the rest of your stack gets. So every time that there's a good hitter who's out, you project, the less performance out of everyone. That means lower volume, fewer base runners, fewer RBI chances for the other batters. So every time a good batter gets taken out, that is a downgrade for the offense. So yeah, if Robert can't play, that is a downgrade for the White Sox as well. Jesus is asking, top pitcher for today. Sorry, late again. You can ask whatever you want. It's totally okay. Feel free to show up at 4:25 Eastern and ask me then. We'll still be good to go. Top pitcher for me for today is Tyler Glasnow. It's either him or Rodon, Carlos Rodon. One of those two guys, I think, has to be your top pitcher for today. They are tremendous talents. They get a lot of strikeouts, and they're both in like decently tough matchups, but they're facing teams that will strike out. Glasnow facing the Athletics. They have a 25% strikeout rate versus righty since the start of last year. He has a 40% strikeout rate this year. There's obviously a risk because he got rocked, like a lot of hard contact against him his last time out. That could happen again. The A's definitely do provide some hard contact, but that's also a risk for Rodon against the Tigers. A 111 WRC plus for them against lefties since the start of last year, 26% strikeout rate. So there is risk in the profile for both Rodon and for Glasnow based on the opponents they're facing, but the upside in the strikeout rates for both guys is high enough to overcome that. So I would say Glasnow is 1, Rodon is 2, and they're 1-2 by a pretty significant margin for me for today. There are value plays you can use, but I think for me, I would focus almost all my exposure on Glasnow and Rodon just because the ceilings for both guys are very, very good. Jared on Facebook, home run derby thoughts for tonight. All right, let's pick a dinger hitter for today. Go to the hitter tab. So you want to get someone who's going to get some balls in play, facing preferably a non-ground ball pitcher who is letting up some hard contact. That leads me to Fernando Tatis against Taylor Widener. I think that that's going to bode well for him. Good temperature for today. Good park for hitting. I think that Tatis grades out really well. I'd actually put Will Myers on that list too, assuming that he's in there. He's not an everyday type hitter. So I would say Tatis, Myers, probably the first places I'd be turning to there. Otherwise, I think, let me look at Eric Fetty's numbers because I want to see what the ground ball rate is against him. I'm very intrigued by the Blue Jays in general. So let's see what the ground ball numbers are for Fetty. And it is internet 48%. That's still pretty high, but I think you could justify just going Vladimir Guerrero Jr. again because, like, why not? So, I think that I might look there, look at the Blue Jays in general, see if you want to go there. But to me, Tatis stands out. Myers stands out if you want to be a little bit different, assuming he does play for today. Those would be the main places I'd be looking. Good home run environments for the Padres and for the Blue Jays for today. Alvin Springer might be back in the Blue Jays lineup. That's pretty interesting. I would say that I am a little bit wary. I think that, like, I always have a checklist in my mind of different injuries that scare me. Those are oblique injuries. Those are wrist injuries, anything to, like, the arms. And so basically it's obliques and wrists. I worry about them for hitters when they come off of injuries, and Springer does have that. So I would prefer to take a wait-and-see approach. With that said, let's check out the salary for today for George Springer, $3,500. So it's not like a massive discount. It does help the entire offense that Springer's back because he's a good hitter. But, like, for Springer himself, I am okay being a little bit wary just because the nature of his actual injury is one that scares me. Now, I say that, and Ronald Acuna Jr. had a side injury, an abdomen injury, when he was out of the lineup like last week, came back and had like 16 hard hit balls over the weekend. So it can burn me. I'm going to have Springer in stacks tonight, but he will not be a focal point of those stacks just because abdominal injuries and oblique injuries always scare me for hitters when they come back. Mateo, I like Rodon pitching in the cold. I also like some of the lefty bats versus Marquez. I like Rodon as well. Number 2 pitcher for me. The cold helps for sure, and I think you could have made the case for Rodon without that. Like, I try to formulate general thoughts on the slate the day before so that I can kind of know where I want to go and then finalize rankings once I see the forecast. Rodon was number 2 for me before I saw the forecast, and he solidified at number 2 as a result of the forecast. So yes, Mateo, fully agree on Rodon. I think he's in a great place for today. Some of the lefty bats against Marquez. So I was pretty down on Aaron Marquez earlier. I am less down now because the strikeout rate coming back up. He's throwing a lot of sliders, especially in his past 4 outings, is the note I have for him. 26% strikeout rate in those 4 starts. The Giants are playing at a bad park. It's 60 degrees there. It's not a good park for offense in general because of the temperature. So we're kind of double counting there, but it is a bad park for offense overall. They're not like the most powerful offense. They can sometimes leave games early. So I'm not very into the Giants personally. I know that park has been tremendous for hitting the past couple of nights for whatever reason. I would still be pretty low on that game in general just because it doesn't set up super well for offense. And Marquez trending up given the increased slider usage. Hey, is this actually asking about that same game, asking about Alex Wood? Yeah, I think Alex Wood is the other value play. The 2 value plays I think are interesting for today for pitching are Alex Wood and Alex Cobb. Both guys are very risky because feeling good about them is dependent on buying into a very small sample. With Cobb, it's a 3-start sample. With Wood, it's a 2-start sample. And like honestly, 1.5 because his first start was 61 pitches. So you have to take a leap of faith. The reason that I'm okay with both those guys, I'll start with Wood here because Jesus asked about him. The velocity for Alex Wood is up. I believe it's his fastest sinker velocity since 2017, 2016, back when he was really good with the Dodgers. That's a good thing. Also using his slider more. And his pitch count was awesome in his second start, 97 pitches, which for Wood is tremendous. We can see the pitch data here. So the velocity on the sinker, 91.7, highest for him since 2017. Slider usage at 39%, highest of all time. 84.7 miles per hour, highest of all time. He looks good. That's why I am okay using Alex Wood for today. Facing the Giants, 24% strike, or sorry, facing the Rockies, I should say. 24% strikeout rate, 94 WRC plus against lefties. It's a good matchup. I know they went off last night, but overall, a good matchup for Alex Wood. And I think that he's the first or the second value pitcher. The other one is Alex Cobb. He is also making some changes so far this year. He's throwing a splitter more, I think it's a curveball more, or maybe he's throwing it harder. Let's pull up the notes here on Alex Cobb and see what we got going for him so far this year. Another guy who left the Orioles may have gotten better. I know, shocker, given the way that Dylan Bundy's worked out for the Angels so far. So curveball usage up, curveball velocity also the highest for Alex Cobb, but the splitter usage is kind of the big thing here, because splitters are nasty pitches when you can use them a lot, and it's the highest velocity on that since 2014. So I think Cobb works. I am skeptical that this will stick, the recent uptick for him, but honestly, I can't find a value pitcher on this slate who I'm like, yes, I believe they're legit, fully in. Inoa, Dunning, and Velasquez, they all have pitch count concerns. So if you're not going to use a stud in Rodon or Glasnow, you're going to take risk for sure. So I'll just take the risk with the guys who have strikeout upside. That to me is Cobb and Wood. So Jesus, I agree on Wood. Definitely okay with him. But I would put Cobb in there as well. Trevor, are the Yankees stackable again? Yes. Talked about this a bit earlier, but probably not going to get a ton of balls in play because Kramer, decently high strikeout rate and a high walk rate, but I'm skeptical that strikeout number stays as high as it is. That's why I'm okay stacking the Yankees here. They're my number 3 stack behind the Padres, and I don't remember the first stack. That's probably good. We'll figure this out here in a second. It's been a while since we talked about it. It was the Tigers the Padres. The Blue Jays, of course. The Padres and the Blue Jays are the top 2 stacks, and the Yankees number 3. So they're a good stack once again. Worked out well last night. They do get downgraded with likely no Judge. I'm assuming no Judge for today, but still a stack I'm willing to use as long as they're behind the Padres and the Blue Jays. Jack, couldn't you make the same argument with Rodon that we are relying on small sample size with him as well? Yes. So yes, you could make that argument. However, there's a pedigree there. Alex Cobb, we have a long sample on him. He's never been this guy. Carlos Rodon was a top-end draft pick, was good in the minors, and before he got Tommy John back in 2017, he had a 29% strikeout rate. So although it's a small sample of 3 starts with him, it's not like we never saw this with Carlos Rodon in the past. He has a pedigree there. We've seen him do it. Again, the ERA was bad, but a 29% strikeout rate, 12.1% swinging strike rate. He had high strikeout rates in 2015 through 2017 as well. That's why I am more willing to say it's not just a small sample with Rodon. He's actually pretty legit. So that's the key difference for me. Alex Cobb, his strikeout rate hasn't been above 20% since the 90s probably. So that's the difference for me. Rodon has a pedigree and has done it semi-recently. Cobb has never done it. So although I like Cobb, I'm skeptical that it's going to stick because he doesn't really have a track record of doing that. So that's the difference for me. Rodon, I assume this is going to happen. I assume he'd be very good community, maybe not this good, but I thought he'd be good. I didn't think that'd be the case with Cobb. I was skeptical on Wood too, but the starts them good enough to justify some exposure. I would just cap it at I think the max you go on those 2 combined is 20%, whereas the other 80% is between Glasnow and Rodon. That's the key difference for me. Still some time to get some questions in. If you have questions and you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter, get those questions in. Make sure you are subscribed as well, also on YouTube. Likes do help us out a lot, so feel free to hit that like button. But also just subscribe because we have a lot of good stuff here each day with the MLB Q&A, but also with the draft streams on Thursday and Friday for this week. So the reason that I forgot that I was stacking the Blue Jays because we haven't really talked about them too much. So hit the refresh button here and see if we got the Blue Jays lineup. Not as of yet, but we can go over here and look at the projected lineup for the Blue Jays today against Eric Fetty. The reason I like stacking against Fetty is that the one thing he's doing really well so far this year is getting strikeouts, but still not getting whiffs. His CSW percentage, which is called strikes plus swinging strikes percentage, that's actually down from where it was last year. So the strikeout rate good, but I'm not expecting that to stick. Would expect that to come down, which bodes well for the Blue Jays. So projected lineup here, we want Vlad. Actually, let's put it in Glasnow here and actually build out a stack. because why not? We're here. We can live with it. All right, Glass now in a pitcher. Let's see what we get here from the Blue Jays for today. I want Vlad in there just because I'm greedy and want to get him. 29-29 left. That's not too bad. Kevin Biggio batting likely 6th. That can work. 29-67. I'd like to get to Semien if I can because he's pretty solid. Could also put Vlad at third base, I guess. Bichette is 34. Let's see. Okay. I think that if you're looking for value, I do tend to wind up using Lourdes Gurriel more often than I should. Let's pull up the numbers here for the Blue Jays since the start of last year. Likely to bat 7th is Gurriel. That's, not super high, but it's also not low enough where I'm like automatically crossing him off. Gurriel since the start of last year, 109 WRC plus, not the best. Batted ball data, a 167 ISO, 21% strikeout rate. It's not like a glamorous profile. It's not great at all, but it's also not bad. So I'm okay tossing him in there because if I decide to use Gurriel, then I have the flexibility to go Springer if I want to. I could go Grichuk if I wanted to. Let's check out Grichuk's, hard to say. Grichuk, 186 ISO. Marcus Semien, we want to focus on mainly just this year because he had a really weird year last year. Saw a lot of barrels initially for Semien to start off the season. 9.5% barrel rate now. That is good. 170 ISO. That's not quite as enticing. So I'm going to go Grichuk as the 4th guy in the stack. That leaves us 30-75 left. Given the salaries on the Padres guys, specifically Jake Cronenworth again, Will Myers, I think we can make that work. So I'd probably stick Biggio over at third base just because I want to have the flexibility with the Padres guys. We'll put Vladito at first base and 30-75. We can make that work. So I think you can make a Glass now Padres Blue Jays lineup work very well, and I'd love to do so. And if you can do it with Glass, you can do it with Rodon too, because Rodon is $200 more, so no huge difference at all. So Blue Jays easy to stack with Glass now or Rodon, and I would like to do so for sure, just because I think that they're the clear top 2 stacks for today. Other places you could potentially turn for stacks, mentioned before, the Yankees are my number 3 stack. Definitely okay with them. Potentially checking that out. The White Sox are still okay against Mize. I'm just not a big Mize person as of right now. The weather really, really lowers them, but it is still a good matchup. Even with Robert out, still a decent offense. Decent is the key word there. So maybe the White Sox might be better off for one-offs than a full stack just because the weather and the offensive integrity going down. So maybe one-offs for the White Sox as opposed to a full stack, but still, worth considering there. Other places to go for hitters, I'm okay with some one-offs against Herman as well. Again, the Orioles, another team that gets downgraded because there just aren't as many good hitters there with Santander being out. Let's look at the numbers here for the Orioles versus righties since the start of last year. See if we can find any diamonds in the rough for them for tonight. DJ Stewart tends to be someone who I get a little overconfident in just because he tends to be low salaried. 48% fly ball rate. 234 ISO actually isn't too bad. Okay, so let's see what he's been doing so far this year because he's batting 5th. Let's see what the strikeout numbers are for Stewart early on. 24% strikeout rate. That's a lot better than where he was last year. 106 ISO and a 5.9% barrel rate. That's disappointing. So maybe not DJ Stewart, maybe not the Orioles in general, but I do think you could at least look there. Mancini's fun. I can get behind that. Love a good story. Franco's been pretty solid so far this year as well. Mancini, 34%, 231 ISO. Yeah, definitely okay with that. Maikel Franco, 187 ISO. Yeah, so Franco, Mancini, maybe Stewart, I guess. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but I think he's okay. Austin Hayes, let's check out what he's done. It's a small sample this year because he was hurt, but a 20% hard hit rate, 077 ISO. That's not fun. Let's see what the numbers look like this year, though. Yeah, a couple homers a couple nights ago. Okay, that's not too bad. 12.5% barrel rate. All right, cool. So I actually think the Orioles are fine. I could talk myself into stacking them. If you need another option for hitters, I'm worried that game plays in St. Louis. Let's see the updated for. Yeah, that's pretty gross. So I think that should be enough bats probably to make things work. And again, given the salaries and the Padres and the Blue Jays, not super difficult to stack them. So overall, not a bad slate for today. That is all the time that we have for today here on the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A. Big day coming up tomorrow. We have the solo shot at 9 a.m. on YouTube. Then we have the Q&A once again at 4 p.m. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. And then the NFL Draft live stream 8 p.m. tomorrow, right here, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. No matter where you're watching, you can get that live stream to talk betting, DFS, and season long. We'll actually take your questions on air as well. So if you have questions during the draft tomorrow, hit us up. We'll take some on air and talk about that, which should be a really fun opening round of the NFL draft. And then Friday as well at 7 p.m. for rounds 2 and 3. If you have additional questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Fantasy Q&A.